Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be going over my least favorite books of all time, and this is part 2, maybe. I don't know which one's coming out first. This is probably part 2 of this little series that I'm doing of kind of my little lists. But this one only has 10, unlike the first one. That one had 11. This one only has 10, and this one was kind of hard to make because there's so many books that I don't like. But I don't have I feel like most books that I don't like, I just don't care about them and are never gonna think about them again. So I had to think of books that literally caused me anguish and literally caused me to lose sleep how much I hated them. And I only picked books that I finished. These are no DNFs because I can't 100% say that they're my least favorite books because I never finished them. A lot of books that I DNF really most likely would get like a 2 or a 3. Just because they're boring. My thing about DNFing books, I normally DNF books because they're boring, not because they're outright bad. So these are books that I just feel are outright bad for plot reasons, writing reasons, general reasons. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment down below, make sure you like the video. Let's talk about my least favorite books that I've ever read. There's gonna be a lot from last year. There's gonna be a lot from last year because of how much I read last year, and I read a lot of bummers. So there are going to be some in there, but there are some other ones thrown in from previous years that I haven't talked about before. So coming in at number 10, this one is no surprise, The Cartographers. Oh my god. This one gets in the bottom because it was both so boring and it made no sense, and I have never been so confused about motivations in a book before. I still cannot tell you why the characters did what they did. I'm gonna try no spoilers. That's the hard part. That's the hard part about worst books, because most of the time the spoilers are what you don't like, so I'm gonna be as vague as possible. But the plot just made no sense. And I don't understand, honestly, what this person was thinking. It felt like the person got halfway through the book and was like, I don't know what to do at this point. Let's do a really weird thing and maybe it'll work. And it did not. It didn't work. And when the reveal was at the end, you're kind of left just sitting there like, but why? But why did they do this? Why was this thing so important? Just give the thing to the bad guy and let him do what he wants. That would literally solve everyone's problem. So if you know, you know. If you know what I'm talking about, then you know. There was no point to keep this thing away from the bad guy because it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. So, in my opinion, give the bad guy what he wants, let him go on his way, everyone else live a happy life. End of story. I have a whole review for that if you want spoilers to know what I'm talking about. Coming in at number 9, I'm not really going to talk about plots in this because it's going to sound mean, but they don't even deserve me to talk about the plots because it's just going to make me mad. It's just going to make me mad. So coming in at number 9 is The Family Game. Oh, another one that I have a review up for. See, that's the thing, most of these have reviews up because I hated them so much. I needed to vent so that my husband wasn't taking the brunt of my anger. But oh my god, Family Game, another one where I'm just kind of like, it felt meh for the most part, but the weird sexual tension between our main character and her future father-in-law was so weird. It made me so uncomfortable and made me not like her as a character because, like, why are you, like, with your fiance doing things and thinking of his dad? And it's not like a contemporary fiction. It was just a thriller. There was no need for this. I feel like the only purpose was that she didn't understand how to show the father-in-law was evil besides making the main character fantasize about him. That's how he was evil, is she fantasized about him. And it's bizarre, but absolutely bizarre. And I just found this book really, really boring. It promised games. It promised, like, I was thinking it was going to be like hide and seek, the movie, and it was not like that whatsoever. There was one really good scene with like a Krampus kind of game kind of thing that had me like a little nervous. That one had me nervous, but the rest of the book was just so boring. And then the ending was very predictable, same as all thrillers have been lately. So for me, that one was just, it was bust. And what made it really that bad was the constant sexual tension between our main character and her father-in-law. Super weird. Here he is. Here he is. Wanna go on the couch? He's so sweet. He hates cameras. He's so sweet. Oh! And he hates being picked up. Come on. There we go. What are you doing? He's just him. He's a weird dog. Okay, that's pretty much everything that I have to say about the family game. Next, coming in at number 8, was a big surprise to me, actually. I read this because Gabby reads. Really enjoyed it, and I was looking for some cool, wintry horror books, and this was just not it for me. This was not it for me. It's kind of how I felt about Devolution. I hated that one, too. This is Near the Bone. I don't feel as strongly about this one. I just genuinely didn't like it, and I didn't like the plot line. I didn't like it was hard to read. It was hard to read, and I was both bored and grossed out by it, and I just felt like it didn't have a real plot. So for me, if like I don't want to read a hack and slash rip 'em up horror with no plot. For me, that does not make a good book. I feel like this would make a really good movie. I feel like people would love this as a movie. It'd be like one of those cult classic B horror movies. But in a book form, because books are just, they take so much of your attention, this is not something I can like do something else while reading. I had to focus on it and pay attention to what's going on, and I was just so bored throughout this book. So I just genuinely did not like this book. And it's on least favorite books because I was that disappointed in it, because I thought it was gonna be really good. I heard some really great things about it, and I just genuinely really did not like this book. So it's not as high because it didn't make me super mad. It super disappointed me, and it was really gross at some parts. I just didn't like the dynamic between the characters in this at all. So yeah, that one's just a big pass for me. Coming in at number 7, this one makes me legitimately angry. The Wife Upstairs. I hated this book. I hated this book because it was marketed. The marketing is really what killed me. It was marketed as a Jane Eyre retelling in a thriller format. And I was like, that sounds so cool. I would love to read that. And as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to happen because it's a retelling, etc. And then I read the ending and I'm like, are you kidding me? And then there's a note from the author that says, I hated Jane Eyre, so this is why I tore the original story apart. And I was like, why would you market it to fans of Jane Eyre then? Like, why? Why would you do that? I literally only picked this up because Jane Eyre is my favorite classic. Absolutely my favorite classic. And it just, like, this book just made an absolute mockery of it. And it was clearly written by someone who hates the book. So if you hate Jane Eyre, I would highly recommend The Wife Upstairs. But if you like Jane Eyre, don't do it. Don't do it. I feel like a lot of people have the same issue as I do because they went into it thinking, oh, it was marketed as a Jane Eyre retelling. No, it should have been marketed as a Jane Eyre scathing review. That's what it should have been marketed as. So this one made me mad just because it was totally marketed to the wrong people. I never would have read it if it said, I hate Jane Eyre and this is what I think about the characters in Jane Eyre. Coming in at number 6, I have a full review out for this one as well, is Darling Girl. It's been a while now since I've read that one, to the point where I'm kind of like getting a little fuzzy on the details, which is good because it was a waste of my freaking time, and it's a Peter Pan retelling, but like in the worst way. I thought it was gonna be so good because I don't like Peter Pan. So this is the funny thing. This was marketed correctly. This is basically for people who don't like Peter Pan. I don't like Peter Pan, and I read it and I still hated it, which is why it's above The Wife Upstairs. Because I feel like if I hated Jane Eyre, I would have loved The Wife Upstairs. So if you hate Peter Pan and it's marketed to people who hate Peter Pan, I feel like you should like the book. And this was just, no. It was so boring. It was so boring. I just like, this should have been a DNF, but I powered through it because it's not that long. But any action that you're promised happens off page. It's just weird, and you don't even get like a satisfying conclusion. And I absolutely hated the main character. She was a brat, and I feel like she didn't learn that much as the book went on. Like, there was almost no character development in her character whatsoever. I feel like the tiniest bit. But otherwise, I feel like nothing was learned from this whole book. And I feel like it was a waste of time. Nothing happened. Everything turned out, I feel like, how it started. So, I don't know. Coming in at number 5 is The Maid. Again, this is not a surprise. This is not a surprise to people. My main issue is that I don't like when you use a personality disorder as the main plot line. I don't like it. So it's an issue I have because my sister-in-law is mentally handicapped. This character is not to that extreme, but she obviously has some sort of neurological condition. There is something that is not 100% like right. I guess not. I don't know how you would say it because they never define what is wrong, like what she has. So it makes it hard to talk about because then it's like, well, you're putting that on her and maybe she doesn't actually have it. And it's like, it was very clear the intention was that something is slightly off. Something is not quite 100% like, I don't want to say correct because just because you have something off doesn't mean it's not correct. There's a personality quirk. We're just going to go with personality quirk. But she has some sort of social anxiety / cues. She doesn't understand social cues, doesn't get sarcasm, doesn't get stuff like that. And the author uses that as the plot device. Like, it gets the woman into trouble and gets her into legal trouble, and it gets her used by all these people, and there's people trying to help her and be nice, and that's supposed to be cute, and it's just like, this isn't fun to read because this actually happens. This isn't cute. This isn't fun. So my sister-in-law has been taken advantage of because she's mentally handicapped and doesn't understand things that are happening, and bad stuff has happened because of it. So I felt it was so insulting to use someone's mental incapabilities as a plot device in what is supposed to be a cutesy mystery. It's not cute. It's not fun. It is quite insulting, actually. I feel like there's a good way to show representation this way, and this was not the way to do it. I feel like it didn't upset a lot of people, and I was surprised it did so well. I feel like this is the definition of a book people should be fighting against. For equality for people who have these issues, and to show them in a more appropriate light. Like, I feel like this almost would have done better as a serious thriller instead of a cozy mystery kind of thing. This would have been a lot better if you dove more deeply into the actual problem, which is people taking advantage of her. Like, let's say we'll have our main character who has the same problems. The problems cause her to get into trouble, and she has a group of people who are trying to help her. I feel like a more serious thriller would explore that in a way that makes the audience really think about it, really think about this as a problem, because it is a real problem. And I feel like this book just made light of it, made like it was, oh, it'll all work out, there's always people looking out for you, but there isn't. There are not people always looking out for this group of people. So I feel like it needed a more serious backdrop other than someone making light of it. And that's all I'm going to say about that because it makes me very angry. Yeah, that's all I gotta say about it. If you have like an altering opinion on that, I would love to hear it. I haven't heard anyone really talk about it, and doesn't make me feel very great about that. I feel like I'm out on an island by myself on this one, but whatever. Anyway, coming in at number 4, on more lighter note, I put this in the middle just because little lighter note, on the other ones, the more funny, angry, less angry, because I'm angry at the Maid. The Hunting Wives is number 4. My God, this book was, I don't even know what to say about this book other than that it was absolutely atrocious. I have never hated a group of people more in my life. Literally never have hated them more in my life. I feel like I love unlikable characters, but there has to be like something. There has to be a good backstory. There has to be something that makes them that way that is like, I get it. You be as horrible as you want. These women just sucked. These women sucked. It was like reading a book. I mean, it basically was. It was reading a book about a bunch of women who are bored with their lives and they just want to cause havoc. They want to wreak havoc in other people's lives and cause drama and they're all in each other's lives, and they're all like picking at each other and picking at other people, and I'm just like, this is the most toxic thing I've ever read in my entire life. I was baffled, astounded by this book and the audacity of these women. I don't know how anyone could possibly like this book and not just want to rip their hair out while they're reading it. The next one on this list is The Lake by, I think it's Natasha Preston. I will never read another book by her just based on this one. This one was so bad. I feel like this one started off okay, and it was like interesting, and it was like, okay. And then the ending happened, and it was like, boop, and you're like, what just happened? What happened? And it has to be this high because I literally won't read another book by this author because of how bad it was. I feel like that is quite impressive. If you can make me not read any of your other books by me reading just one of your books, that is to be almost applauded. I hated that book so much. And the ending was just wild. The ending was something that I've never read before, but like in a really bad way. It was like the author was like, oh, this is fun, this is camp things and death and etc. and we're having a good time. And then the ending happened, and you're like, did you like actually like panic, like full panic attack when you got to the end, and you're like, oh, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do the end, so let's do this. Let's do this. It's like she wrote like 4 different endings and it was like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and the worst one was picked. There were so many directions this could have gone, and it went in a direction that I was just sitting there like, why? Why did you end it this way? This was a fine book. It was okay, and then the ending just went absolutely bonkers. I actually wrote a review on this. I wrote, the writing was poor, the characters were written terribly, the romances were awful, and the ending was a travesty. I feel like that sums up the book perfectly. And I said, you have to have a good ending if the rest of the book really doesn't do much. And that's just how this book is. It was, as I said, a travesty. The first review on this book says, this was one of the shittiest endings I've ever read. Wasn't the only one who thought that. Next verse said, that ending made me want to put my head through a wall. I should have been reading reviews for this the whole time. Okay, before I go literally on a deep dive of these reviews, we're gonna move on to number 2, and it was The Secret History. I know, guys, I know. But oh my gosh, this was like one of the worst books I've ever read. It was until this past year I read something that was worse and knocked it down one. But this was, it was so bad. I remember the whole plot perfectly. Either a book is that good that I remember the whole plot, or the book is that bad. I think this is the only book that is so bad I remember everything with like photographic memory level of things happening. That's how much I remember this book, because I was rage reading it. Absolutely rage reading it. And this was before that. I read this before I really DNF'd things, because I just walked around the house screaming as I was reading this, praying that my copy of the book would light on fire so that I didn't have to read it anymore. And I don't know what else to say other than that. I hated the characters. I hated the plot line. Again, another thing that I feel like I like unlikable characters, but they were so horrible that I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't stand it. And I wanted to light things on fire as I was reading this. And that's all I have to say about it. It's just sad because this one has a 4.17, and literally the first review that pops up is Katie Colson's, and she loved it, which makes me so sad. But I'm definitely in the minority for this one. DNF at 55% because I can't keep doing this to myself. That's how I felt reading it. I can't keep doing this to myself, which is why I feel like this book inspired me to start DNFing books, because like I said, never wanted to ever light a book on fire just so I could get out of reading it. So I like that. I like the DNF because I can't keep doing this to myself. I feel that one on a personal, deep level. Okay, we'll move on from this one as well. My number 1 most hated book, and I don't understand number 1 how I made it through the book. I really don't. I only made it through the book because I was hoping it would turn around, because it has a 4.13 on Goodreads. It only has 535 ratings, so maybe that's why. And it has gone down some. I think it was like at 4.4. So the more people are reading it, the more I feel like they're not liking it. But oh my gosh, this was one of the worst written books, most contrived, most ever. The books, all the characters were like one-dimensional. They were terrible. I don't even know how to explain how absolutely atrocious this book was. And the sexual assault that happens in this book is appalling. Actually appalling. This came in a Twisted Retreat box, so it's supposed to be like dark horror books, but this took it to a new level with the sexual assault. It was constant, and it was disturbing and disgusting, and I've never been so disgusted with a book before. I was so disturbed reading this book, but not in like a, oh, this has a lot of interesting discussion. No, it was just bad. It was just absolutely terrible, and I don't know how anybody even remotely likes this book. I don't get it. And yeah, one of the authors, because it's two authors, has a note at the back that talks about sexual assault and how important it is to discuss it in a way that we bring light to situations and we don't hide behind people who don't want to talk about it, and we bring it to the forefront and talk about it in a way that gets it like attention, and we fight for those victims. This book was not it. This book did none of those things, and I was shocked to read that because it felt like the person who wrote it took sexual assault lightly. It felt like it was just a run-of-the-mill thing for them, and it was shocking that she seems to feel so strong about it because it was disgusting. It was disgusting how it was talked about. And I feel like it's because you're in the mind of the villain, of the bad guy, but still, I can't imagine someone writing that and finding it okay, like after writing it. Like, I don't understand. I really just don't understand this book. And yeah, you're just hit over the head with graphic violence and the R word just constantly. So it was just, I can't. It was absolutely horrible, and this is easily the worst book I've ever read. I don't think anyone should read it. I don't think it should have existed to begin with, to be honest. I feel like that's very harsh to say, but it shouldn't have. It shouldn't have existed, and it's very upsetting that it does. And I wasted my time, which is the biggest thing. And it was so bad, I actually canceled my Twisted Retreat box because I can't trust the books and later. Like, that's how bad it was. So yeah, that's my top 10 worst books I've ever read. A lot of things to say. I feel like this is definitely a more unhinged review compared to my favorite books, but you know what? You gotta be fair. I have favorite books and I have worst books. Hopefully no authors watch this. This is not the point. My channel's not big enough for authors to watch this anyway, so whatever. But if you're an author, you shouldn't watch this, okay? You shouldn't watch this. But anyway, like I said, make sure you subscribe. I still have one more video coming out after this, Most Surprising Books, which is on a lighter note. Make sure you comment down below. I'd love to hear what your worst books were that you've ever read, what you thought about some of these. I'm sure a lot of you liked a lot of these books on here, but I'm sorry. It's my personal opinion. It's not meant to offend anybody. It's just something fun. And like I said, I would love to hear what your worst books are because I'm sure I loved some of them. So anyway, that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you guys in the next video.